Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. Let's talk boxing. Joe Cordina just overcame Eddie Vazquez in what was a terrific fight. If you've not seen it, check it out on DAZN. You're going to love it. I had it 7-5 to Joe Cordina. One of the judges had it a draw. Another two of the judges had it 116-112. I've seen a lot of people complaining that the scorecards were far too wide, which is baffling to me because a lot of these people had it 115-113 to Joe Cordina. Now, it's fair for you to say that if you had 5 clear rounds to Vazquez. Even if a fight is 6-6, a draw, but each fighter clearly wins 6 rounds, there's no room for argument. They each won 6 rounds. Then even if you go 7-5 to either guy, it's a robbery because you've taken a round that didn't belong to him and you gave it to the other. None of that applies in this fight because there were 3 or 4 rounds in there that were swing rounds. So if you had it 7-5 to Joe Cordina and there's 3 or 4 swing rounds in there, well, unless you gave all of the swing rounds again to Joe Cordina, so 5 were clear to Vazquez, how can you complain that the judge disagreed with you on one specific round that was close? There were people out there who had even rounds and they're complaining about the fact that it was wider than they wanted. If it's an even round, you've literally got it a draw. Well, then you're talking about it being up for grabs. So again, if a judge gives it to one of the 2 guys, why are you complaining? It's baffling to me that people are moaning about this. Nothing wrong with the scorecards. It could have gone either way. It was a great fight. Now, from a technical perspective, let's talk about how it played out and why Cordina could have some real problems moving forward, in my opinion. Because while he's got an awful lot of talent and there's a lot of technical skill there, he makes some errors which could one day really cost him. So he came out in the first round and he does what he tends to do. He's flashing moments of brilliance, slipping inside shots, not on the outside, whipping in these hooks to the body. On one occasion, he hurt Vazquez. Not massively, but it was enough to stop Vazquez from bringing that forward momentum, covering up and just taking a step back, just maintaining range. And he did this throughout the course of the fight. And Cordina did not capitalize on that enough, in my opinion, and we'll talk about that moving forward. But you also saw in that first round, he was content to just stand there and get involved. He gives up his legs. He gives up his advantage of mobility. And what you saw is that Vazquez was able to crouch low and throw an up jab, and he would have a lot of success with that up jab. And one of the problems that Cordina has, which he has consistently, and this is why he gets caught with these shots, is that when he's on the edge of range or just inside range, when he's in that pocket, he stands too tall. So when your opponent crouches with you, you've got a couple of choices. You can turn off to a more bladed stance. That way, if you're going to throw a long shot from there, you can literally lean behind the shoulder. Think of someone like Tyson Fury. The other option is to lower your level with him. That way, he's not going to have that over-the-top shot opportunity. This is something, for instance, that Jack Catterall tends to do. Cordina doesn't do either. He's not particularly bladed. He's a little bit more square on. He's got that lead hand low and he's standing tall. So it leaves an opening for that up jab. And he was getting caught with that. Now, the second round was one of the swing rounds. Cordina was doing some nice quality work to the body. But he was exiting in straight lines. When he was moving backwards, consistently straight lines all the way back to the ropes. And Vazquez was just shutting him down and just throwing punches. And he was landing them consistently. So again, Cordina's given up his legs too easily. And I scored that round to Vazquez. The third round, it was another swing round. But Vazquez started the round well with, again, Joe being too tall in the pocket. But then he started to maintain range a little bit better. He made that adjustment. He began to work longer, so to speak, throwing longer punches and saying to Vazquez, if you're going to want it into the pocket, now you're going to have to bypass these shots and you're going to have to earn your entry. And he's in charge for the first 2.5 minutes of the round. The last 30 seconds, 25 seconds of the round, he decides to back up onto the ropes again and just hold up that high guard. So now you're inviting Vazquez onto you. Baffling. Vazquez goes against that high guard of Cordina and he starts ripping hooks into the body and he starts to find openings basically, and he closes the gap as to who you're going to score that round to. It still went to Cordina, but why is Joe giving up these opportunities? The fourth round was again another swing. The pattern remained the same. Cordina was very creative with his combinations on the inside, but he's offering the pocket far too easily. The fifth round, I scored to Vazquez. He was outworking Joe Cordina in the fifth round. On many occasions throughout the fight, you're seeing that Vazquez is getting caught to the body, and this happened in the fifth as well, and then he steps back. And when he steps back and he's holding up his hands up and he's just moving around, he's clearly trying to buy time. He's got a good poker face. He's trying to buy time. And in that moment, Cordina's not making him work. He's not pumping out the jab. He's not throwing feints to make him react so he can draw out a shot. He can lure him onto something so he can counter that. Instead, he's got that low lead hand and he's waiting to counter punch. Why are you doing that? He's looking for a break. You're giving him a break. But then when he decides he's going to rush you, you're going to end up just giving up the pocket. And at that point, you want to trade. So you want to trade on his terms rather than on your terms. One of the keys to being successful in a fight that's really competitive is to make an opponent do what he doesn't want to do. Someone like Edward Wood, by the way, was great at doing that. So the decision making of Cordina was not impressing me at all through 5. And after 6 rounds, I had it level because again, Cordina was moving back onto the ropes and he was allowing Vazquez to come in out of that crouch. He was standing too tall. He was releasing these combinations around the guard of Joe Cordina, either behind the elbows or even looping shots around the guard. And from there, Joe would sporadically rip some nice hooks to the body of his own, particularly that left hook to the body and a nice uppercut. He's walking him onto solid uppercuts. They're eye-catching, really good, solid shots. But for me, they were too sporadic. So he's being outworked in those moments where he's landing nice shots but isn't hurting Vazquez. In round 8, you could see that he was landing the sharper 1-2s from range was Joe Cordina. Nice variation with his work to the body. And he started to catch a lot more shots. And when he was up on the ropes, he was starting to roll with those shots. And I really like to see that sort of thing that he was doing. And I scored that round to him. Round 9, though, Joe started to look as though he was slowing down. And I mentioned this on my timeline. And after the fight, Billy Nelson, the trainer of Martin Bakole, also tweeted that he's worried about the weight cut of Joe Cordina because he seemed to tire from round 9 onwards. And I agree. In the 9th round, he slowed. Vazquez was shooting those hooks to the body from that crouch again, and he was sporadically finding that up jab and also a looping right hand when Joe Cordina was standing too tall. The other thing that was happening is that Joe, who had been dipping to the side and then shooting that left hook to the body, that shovel hook to the body, when he was dipping, he was staying quite tall again. And it was spotted by Vazquez. So he started to throw his own looping hook with that, his own left hook. So as he's dipping to throw that hook, he's being caught on the opposite side that he's dipping towards, which will take him further towards that dip. That's an eye-catching shot. So he's leaving his head far too high up in the air. Now, in the 10th round, he made a nice adjustment with regards to that. He landed a beautiful 1-2-3 combination whereby he arched the hook a little bit more. He made it a longer hook. He landed. It was lovely. And he was putting together some nice shots. And he started to sort of pull back after that attempted hook was coming. But you still needed to see him dip at the knees a little bit more because on occasion it was still catching him. When he was being too tall in the pocket and ripping those hooks to the body, Vazquez was timing that shot. Then came the 11th round. Vazquez again was getting low. Same sort of tactic from Vazquez, right? He's trying to come in low and then work from that low position. He's trying to force Cordina back onto the ropes, who's given that opportunity way too much. When Joe was spotting this on the exit of Vazquez, he was trying to land a chopping right hand, and Vazquez would be throwing that left hand up and just exiting, and as he's exiting, he's catching it on the arm. So there were a lot of adjustments here from both guys. In the final round, it was Cordina that was landing the clean work, a lot of 1-2s, splitting the guard. He was landing flush. Vazquez was busy and he was letting go on a lot of shots, but a lot of them were coming off of the gloves. In terms of clean and effective work, it was Cordina in the 12th round, and he was finding the gaps, and Vazquez just wasn't accurate enough in that final round. So great fight. No problem if it goes either way because there are a number of swings, especially early. But ultimately, I felt that Joe Cordina got the job done. The problem is he gets touched so much and he stands too tall in the pocket. He exits in straight lines. He gives up his legs without it being necessary. If he's in there against a guy like Leigh Wood, he'll clean your clock with one specific shot. We've seen this happen time and again. Joe Cordina does not have the legs of somebody like Josh Warrington. He was timed and he was caught. He doesn't have the upper body movement of somebody like Michael Conlan. He was timed and he was taken out. You cannot be sitting there with your flashing hand speed and say, I'm going to rely on this. I've got a bit of power, a bit of pop as well. I've got variation. I'm going to rely on this against Leigh Wood because he's big at the weight. He carries power. If he lets go of his hands and he lands flush on you, you are potentially in serious trouble. So, this applies to Navarrette as well, who will throw big punches from unusual angles. He's another guy that will come from a crouch and launch with these long power shots. You can't be in a situation where you're letting a guy crouch in front of you and you're not in a bladed stance looking to exit the pocket. You're not changing the level and you're ahead on a stick. You're going to be getting caught. So for me, Cordina, great fight once again, getting touched too much once again, and it's a potential problem for him that he needs to address moving forward. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. How did you score the fight? Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, the right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.